Spiral, on the other hand, was just okay. And that wouldn't feel like such a crushing blow if this movie wasn't, number one, heavily promoted, and number two, didn't feature Chris Rock. Because, there's stories about this movie, how it was in development for many years or conceptualized for many years. Chris Rock actually met the head of Lionsgate at a party one time and talked to him for like an hour about his idea for a Saw movie. This was years ago. This was many years ago when the franchise was still going on.
Yeah.
And they always kept in the back of his mind. He basically willed this project into existence, coming up with the story. He doesn't have really a writing credit on this, but he was heavily involved in the producer aspect and the conceptualization of this movie. And, overall, it's okay. It's got some really interesting elements to it, if nothing else. It feels different. It looks different. As somebody who's seen all the Saw movies, all 8 leading up to it, it looks different. Like, it's a very nice movie to look at. It's definitely got like a different color palette to it. It's a little bit more orange and teal than like the grimy warehouse aesthetic of the original films. And no, Tobin Bell's not in this, so quit asking. Tobin Bell's not in this. Not even the
Billy the
doll.
Puppet.
Even Billy's not in this. We get pig costumes, so we got stuck pig masks, which are starting to become very overused in horror movies. We got stuck with Pig Saw in this movie. But overall, it was all right. The big gripe that I had with it was that, and I don't know if you felt the same way, Joe, the traps were just very unimaginative to me, and they were over far, far too quickly.
Okay.
That was my big gripe.
Actually, I liked the traps a lot in this movie. That was actually one thing I really liked. I liked how gory it was this time around, man. Because, like, to me, these last two ones, the 3D one and then that 2017 reboot, those ones to me are the worst ones of the franchise.
Easily.
Like, and I felt like Jigsaw, like, when it came to the traps, like, yeah, they got really lazy and they were tamed as well. This time
Jigsaw
around,
was the worst.
Yeah. This time around, they were back more on what they usually do, like, and it made me squirm in my chair. There's one that involves someone's tongue, and that made me squirm a bit. And then there's one that involves fingers getting pulled, and I'm like, no. I will admit, the last one, I was kind of like, that's it? Like, I was like, that's really what you got up your sleeve for this finale one? There's one that involves glass being shot out of a cannon, and I thought that was pretty creative. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. Like,
that was probably my favorite one.
They don't go as good. For me, the Saw franchise, I like the original trilogy, but even saying that, I think 2 and 3 are weak films. I don't like 4. I don't like 5. I think 6 is a good one because it came out, I think, at a perfect time when it came to the whole stock market thing and insurance companies. So I thought like that was just like perfect timing. And then, like I said, 3D is just bad, and Jigsaw to me is the worst one. For me, I have to agree with Steve though. Like, the movie's just okay. It's not because of Chris Rock. Chris Rock, I think, actually did a pretty good job. He was great in Fargo season 4. He's good here. I did like the traps. Overall, it's just the story is really not that engaging because the story is always constantly moving, and while it doesn't sound like a bad thing, you don't really have time to digest the mystery part of this film. It's always constantly people screaming at each other. A trap is going off. Someone's dying. Like, you never really have a moment to, like, sit down, breathe, take your time, and really, like, get to know the characters in this movie. Because it follows the cliches of rogue cop gets the rookie partner, his chief is up his ass and everything, the department's going against him. And it's an interesting concept, too, of, like, the police department is filled with corrupt cops except for Chris Rock, who is the only, like, loyal cop, honestly. And they have to come together to find this person who is trying to reform the police department because they're all corrupt. And and this Jigsaw copycat wants to reform it. And it's an interesting idea to be like, okay, you take this one cop who's turned in a dirty cop, so all the other cops in the station hate him now, and he's leading the case. Are they going to come together, do this by the books, actually, like, do this right, or are they going to go against each other and have a group of cops go rogue, start doing stuff dirty behind his back to get the job done, and just to screw over Chris Rock? There could have been potential for some good drama. It's just never met.
That's a good way to put it. I liked Marisol Nichols as the police chief, too. I'm a big fan of her. I don't know if you recognized her, Joe. She was Audrey in Vegas Vacation.
I recognize. I recognize her from that. And, like, I've seen her on I don't watch the show regularly, but she was in Riverdale. I don't know if she's
Riverdale.
Still is now.
Yeah, no, I've been crushing on her since I was 4 years
Oh,
old, so
dude,
I was
she
really
is-
happy to
Woo!
see her. I'm telling you, my goodness, you know, like Shania Twain, like we could date, you could cheat on me, that's all good. But anyway,
Which Saw movie had Dr. Phil and Shaquille O'Neal in this? I'm kidding.
That is
if you know, you know. I'll say too, like. The other thing that I thought was interesting with the way they took this movie, because it's not a bad movie. Darren Lynn Bousman directed this movie. He directed 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
And there's one thing I can't get over that pissed me off, but I'll say this though. I thought it was an interesting turn because unlike the Saw movies that are trying to reform individuals, that was kind of, John Kramer's original conceit was to reform people by putting them through something so grueling that it would make them value life in a way that they never valued it before or disregarded it. This movie is like taking aim at an institution and reforming an institution. And I think that, like, if this movie came out last year, you got to think this would have came out in last May, pre-George Floyd. Like, you know, this is a very interesting movie to come out at this particular time.
Yeah.
And I also, too, I love the ending. I love the symbolic nature of the ending and the fact that they cued the original Charlie Clouser Zepp Overture. That is a jam. That is a jam. And then it ends with, and I mentioned it this pre-show, 21 Savage did the music for this movie, and his Slaughter Gang did the EP for Spiral. And that Spiral song that 21 Savage did is absolutely terrific with the Saw theme interplayed in the back. Rap composition. It's just great. And 21 Savage was the perfect person to do the music because of the ominous way he raps and the ominous nature of his voice and his production. So he was absolutely perfect. That was a great surprise and a great way to end my trip back to the movies. But the one thing that I'll tell you right now that really pissed me off with this movie, it's a blink and you miss it line. But Chris Rock says in the movie, when they're trying to figure out kind of who him and his rookie partner trying to figure out who this copycat killer is when Chris Rock says John Kramer didn't target cops. And that's patently false. And I wouldn't be so mad about that if the guy who directed 2, 3, and 4, 2 and 4, especially 4, is exclusively revolving around cops.
Yeah.
And cops being victims of Jigsaw. I don't understand how that line made it in the final movie because it's patently false. If the Spierig brothers who did the Jigsaw movie we got a couple years ago, if they did this, I'd still be mad, but I would be okay. It's a different director. The guy who directed 3 of the most movies of this series didn't notice that aggravated me. That was inexcusable. That was flat out inexcusable. They didn't.
I even thought about it too. I'm like, wasn't the main character in 4 a cop? I was just like,
yeah, his muse, O'Halloran.
Yeah,
O'Halloran
I was like,
was a cop, and Peter Strahm, the way the 4th movie ends, Agent Strahm, when the walls close in.
Yeah,
you know, like that was inexcusable. But I will say, like I said, I didn't love the traps. I thought they got lazy at times. The hot wax.
That one was lazy. That one was lazy. Yeah.
The electrified bathtub. And everything. I thought some of these were pretty lazy, and I thought they were over too quickly and I know people are going to think I'm a masochist by saying this, but I'll say this. The longer the traps go on in the Saw movies, especially in the earlier movies, they're more interesting because they give you time to like contemplate. Like even what would you do in that situation?
Exactly, yeah.
The moral quandary at hand, like ripping someone's tongue out for lying on the stand, like the moral quandary that goes on here. There's more to examine when the traps go on longer than they do.
Yeah.
But Chris Rock is good. Samuel L. Jackson, you could believe, cranked his scenes out in a weekend. Really, like he's not in this movie a whole lot. Yeah. But I will say, the more I've thought about it, and I actually found it again online and I watched it again, I do really, really like that climax. I like how it all comes together at the very end. I figured out the twist earlier than I wanted to. I figured out the twist, but I will say, though, that climax of how it comes around and the symbolic nature of what happens to Chris Rock's Detective Banks, I think that was really well handled. And like I said, even quibbles aside, I will show up for Spiral 2 or Saw, because now Darren Lynn Boozman confused the hell out of me. He said there could still be a Saw 9 because this isn't Saw 9, it's Spiral. So who the hell knows?
That's the thing, is that, like, after Jigsaw, I was like, I'm done with these movies. Like, I just think they're going to go down this path. Spiral got me interested again, but it got me interested in Spiral 2, not Saw 9. Like, I could care less about that. It's like, no, I'm liking this approach a little bit more. I want them to be a little bit more on the drama side, have some more detective work here and there, but get a good balance of those traps in there as well. I think you have like a good combination on your hands that you can do maybe a solid trilogy with, of just like different stories of different detectives, possibly.
I give it 2.5 out of 4 stars. How about you?
I'm a little bit meaner. I'm giving it 2 out of 4 stars, but it isn't. As a Saw fan, I think you'll love it. As like somebody like me who casually like the Saw movies, I think it's one of the better ones. But it's just like, damn, like this franchise to me, like that first one's so good, and then like all the others have just always been like going down, 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 down.